Okay, good morning, and we'll begin with taking roll. Jason Lester
Here.
and Alvin Waters
Present.
and Graham Zach.
Here.
Karen Waters here. Okay. All right. So we'll just go straight to item D, which is discussion and motion, which to encumber up to $5,000 for O'Melveny wildlife warning signs. This came up because of Alvin was hiking and ran into some people who were had spotted coyotes. And go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to kind of simplify it, I was hiking on the lower part of the trail and I was about to do the main trail in O'Melveny to the hill that goes up to the higher part. And these hikers asked me, well, are you going through the rest of the trail? Are you staying on the bottom? And I was planning to stay on the bottom, but then kind of thought of going up a little more. And they just said, well, if you're going to go up there, just be aware there's coyotes. And actually, it's interesting because that also happened to me at the Neon Trail where I had to cut one of my hikes short because of coyotes.
Yeah, this came to mind. My parent, well, a variety of my relatives are buried at Forest Lawn. And when you come in, there's a sign that has coyote, mountain lion, rattlesnake. Actually, there's deer on there too, but the point, when people arrive at O'Melveny, they know about the rattlesnakes, and I think we all know that, but there isn't much about, or really anything about the mountain lions and the coyotes. So that's the reason for this motion. We are allowed to encumber up to $10,000 as the board. So so this is a backup just in case. So any thoughts, Graham?
Yeah, I'm curious. They are updating signs and part of that proposal that was passed recently for the park. I'm wondering, obviously, I'm still waiting to hear when all that's going to happen. And they have, from looking at the proposal and the grants, that it's going to take, could take up to a few 2 to 3 years or something. So this might be a faster way to just get those in there now. And I know from personal experience too, because I live right up against Melvany, that the coyotes are definitely, since I've been living here, have gotten more bold and are getting a little worse. Maybe just because more people in there, with more food and things. But I see them all the time. And I've been hiking back there, saw them. And there's also a mountain lion back there now that has kind of popped out here and there. I've seen once. So yeah, I think it would be very good for the safety of the community and just so people have a heads up to do that. So that's just, kind of my 2 cents on it.
Okay, that's good. So you said 2 to 3 years, Graham, for that proposal?
Yeah, I think it was by like 2025.
Oh.
So, and I don't know the specifics. I mean, that was for the 10 parks that were included in that, which is, there's a lot bigger projects in some of the other parks where they're doing like building entire playgrounds, resurfacing like parking lots, and way bigger jobs than what they're doing at Melvany. So, that was kind of a blanket thing. And I've reached out to RAP to try to get some semblance of what time frame they're looking at with specific, in regards to Melvany. So I guess, when I find out, we'll know better. But as of right now, I don't think there's any like huge rush on anything. So
Okay, good. That's very good. Jason, thoughts?
That mountain lions have attacked people, and they are dangerous to hikers. I don't know if it's true or not, but I guess when people assume a position like tying their shoe or crouched over, it signals mountain lions to attack them. I don't know what happened. I think it was most Griffith Park area. Somebody was attacked or killed by a mountain lion. So there should definitely be awareness to people. Another reminder that if they've got little kids with them and stuff, that they do need to be aware and make noise. And then the coyotes have been apparently a lot more aggressive and less concerned with people.
Right.
Next door, you're just seeing story after story about people who are coming across coyotes that just don't care that they're there. They're just not scared of them. So I think this is good. Any reminders to people that it's not dangerous, but they need to be aware and not just assume that it's just safe for them to be walking around and not paying attention to what's
Sure.
going on, or to be alone. Just could prevent something from happening.
Right. Yeah, we have a lot of picnickers going up there too. Even though they can't barbecue there, they do take food, and that could be anything. So that can also entice the lions and the
So,
coyotes.
so I was gonna ask though, are mountain lions prone to attack when there's like a large group of people and there's a lot of noise?
I would doubt that. Most predators are scared of groups of animals. So I guess people, it would look like a herd of people. It would be
Right.
a little bit scary to them versus one person that's by themselves that
Okay.
might just sit down on something and be sitting there, and then it's just will pounce on them.
Right.
Graham, when was the last time you spotted a mountain lion? Because I hike at O'Melveny a lot.
It was probably, I want to say end of last year, probably about 4 or 5 months, or 6 months ago.
Oh.
But also there is, in my personal experience, just from the coyote situation, my wife and I were walking our dog. Our dog is like 115 pounds. I mean, he's a big dog. And there was this coyote, they send scouts through the neighborhood. So there would be like a single coyote that'll scout the neighborhood looking for small dogs or, food or whatever. And it was like tailing us for quite a while. And I got nervous to a point where, it was like tailing us, and that's 2 people, grown people, tall, with a big dog, and it didn't care. And it was still tailing us. And to the point where I told my wife and my dog to go ahead, and I kind of turned around and, started going toward it, to try to, make some noise, scare it off, whatever. And it turned around and it started going back, and it was doing its little yelps, calling to its group wherever they were. But that's just how bold they are. And then eventually, I met up with them and then went back to the house, and that coyote was still kind of there, so it does get, they are definitely getting pretty aggressive.
Now, somebody might have fed that coyote, and he might have thought that you were a source of food. That was an issue in Alaska. There was a wolf reserve that let people camp in, and people started feeding the wolves. And then when people would camp there, the wolves would see tents. And when people would come out in the morning, there would just be wolves sitting there waiting for food.
Huh.
And
interesting.
They had to close it. The wild dogs can be tamed pretty quickly with food. And he might have thought, oh, these people are going to throw something down for me to eat or something like that. Somebody might have fed him previously.
Okay.
But either way, it's still scary.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
How desperate he is.
Well, I think we are unified in agreement. So on item C, may I have a motion and a second for the wildlife warning signs?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And the next one, oh, actually, well, this is a Melviny again. Alvin saw dirt bikes in which trail?
I want to say they were going towards the equestrian trail. It's like one of the trails that start off as a steeper hill. It doesn't go. It's not because the Grotto Trail I know is the one that goes and crosses with the O'Melveny Trail.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I've seen that as well. I've seen them as well. I actually tried to get over there to tell them to get out of there once.
Well,
But
good
yeah,
for
I think
you.
they're I hear them too. I mean, because I live right here, so I definitely hear those dirt bikes. It's not cool. They shouldn't be doing that back there. It's, you know, wildlife, and, you know, it's unsafe as well.
But not
Sure.
to mention, it's, you know, if one of them was to spark, it could start a fire. I mean, now our trails are begging for a match.
Exactly. Speaking of, real quick, while I remember, Karen, you know, you saw that. I think we all possibly saw that email. I was in my spam until you replied to it about that homeless encampment over
Yes.
across from Classics. So I drove by there yesterday after that, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see any garbage. I didn't see any, you know, any kind of evidence that there were any people over there. However, I did see like one of those, like a shuttle, like a bus shuttle, that type of thing that you would take to airports, and like some of them have like limos, like people rent them out or whatever.
Mhm.
It was like up in the hill, like hanging off the side of like the bluff or wherever it is, like, and there was like one piece of yellow tape on it, like someone decided to go off road and then it got stuck, and so it's just like sitting there. I don't know how they're gonna get it out, like some crazy tow truck action or something, I don't know, but that's something we should possibly report for them to remove.
So we received the email from the stake, or whoever that person was, not sure if it was a stakeholder or not, right? So then all of a sudden ABC News flashes this whole thing, and they've got the helicopters over it, and you could see what was going on. It's at the very top. Is that where you were, Graham?
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Say that again.
No, they said right after we received that email, probably about a half an hour later, the Channel 7 News and Channel 2 News had broadcasted this encampment, and from the helicopter view, you could see shipping containers, which is probably what you're referring to, something of that nature. And there is definitely at the time of that footage, there's people up there, there was tents and things like that. So
Really?
I'm not sure. And then they interviewed some of the stakeholders, homeowners in the area, and they said that they've been reporting this for 2 years and nothing happened. So then one of the stakeholders played a voicemail they received from Councilmember Lee's office, saying that they had given some sort of notice to the owner of that lot, and they have 30 days to clean it up. But they knew about it for 2 years, but we just found out about it yesterday. So that was concerning.
Yeah. There's like a vehicle up there. It's not like a container. Like there's like a actual like van stuck up on the hill.
That's crazy.
And it's like, looks like it's almost gonna fall off like the side. But I mean, maybe it's from aerial, maybe they went over the hill where you can't see, but from the street when you're driving by, you can't see any encampments or anything. So I think it might be out of sight range, because I actually pulled over and stopped, you know, when you drive all the way down Cessna and then it dead ends into Aliso Canyon there. Mm-hmm. And Classics is right before there, which is what was reported. And I drove that whole length, and I got out toward the end there where I saw that van, and I looked, I didn't see anything. So I don't know. I mean, they could be further back there maybe, and that's why maybe you only saw it from the helicopter or the aerial view, which is, I guess that's pretty smart. But I just thought like I would see some sort of garbage or something, because if it's a homeless encampment, obviously, you know, they're not very like tidy. So, you know, I don't know.
No, they're not.
But yeah, I mean, that's a huge concern, because that affects all of us. And I mean, that Saddle Ridge fire was only a couple of years ago, or, you know, 2-3 years ago. So, yeah.
Well, this morning I did receive an email from Colin, who handles the sanitation and the homeless situations for Councilmember Lee's office. He actually sent me an email at like 11 o'clock last night. And my specific words to him were that is, homeless people are prone to set fires, and,
Yep.
you know, that's a danger to, that's loss of life, stakeholders, property, animals, everything. So he said he was asking LASA to go out there. So we'll see what exactly that means. But the fact that we can't see it from the street, that's a concern in itself, because if someone didn't alert the news to it, who would get a helicopter up there? How would we have or a drone or something? How would we know that's even going on up there? And
Right.
Oscar didn't know either. Oscar and I texted last night, and he was totally shocked. He didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, so was I. That's why I drove up there, because I live right here. I mean, I was like, whoa, I'd never, and then, you know, so yeah, I think if we can identify where that is and if it's actually there and what's going on and address that, I don't know, you know, if we should make a statement or something, or, you know, bring it to the board or whatever we need to do. But we should definitely follow up and make sure that we know what's going on with that.
Sure. Well, I'll check with Colin again to find out what's going on. So at least we all have, that we are aware of it, and also asking Councilmember Lee's office, if there's anything happening within our boundaries, please let us know. You know, we shouldn't hear about this on the news, or, you know, because someone emailed us. We should always know, even if we can't do anything, we should still at least know what's going on, so we can, you know, contact the appropriate sources to deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, it's, you know, going back to our board meeting, one of our stakeholders was talking about, you know, putting up an 8-foot fence. Well, you know, this is a perfect example of why
Mhm.
homeowners are doing that.
Good point. Okay, all right, so on the dirt bikes, let's see, so Graham, would you mind contacting Mirka about that to see if, you know, what exactly can be done? The park ranger's house burned down in Saddle Ridge, so he's not on site anymore. So that could be part of the issue.
Oh, so wait a minute. Is there not a park ranger that goes through there?
Well, he visits there, but we know he's not living there because the house burned down.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. I'm writing that down now. I'll email her and to address the homeless thing, or what, to check on.
We'll start.
The
It's
dirt
actually a
bike?
two-part. It's actually a two-part situation. One is the
Okay.
dirt bikes, because the sparks can, not only can a spark cause a fire, but
Right.
if kids up there doing that, they could be killed, they could be injured, and of course, then, you know, we know what happens from there.
Right. Okay.
And we could even add to those signs. Actually, you know something, on that D, going up to that for a moment, this is a good point. Motion. I'm going to back this up a little bit and I'm first going to make a motion to amend this motion to include wildlife warning signs and no dirt biking or camping. How do you feel about that?
All motion.
Yeah. It's like a,
Okay, we'll go motion to amend the motion. Thank you, Graham. You got my brain is
Yeah.
it's rolling now. Okay, motion to amend. Okay, so we have a motion to amend the motion. So we all agree on this one, motion to amend, okay. And then and the amendment to the motion. All agree?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so amend. Motion to amend. Okay, excellent, awesome. Okay. All right, and then moving on to, oh, this will be fun. Okay, item F. We are coming into our re-election season for us. And in years past, prior to you all, actually, Graham, you came during the pandemic, so you were the first virtual, like one of the virtual candidates, if you will. But our elections prior to the pandemic were at the Knollwood Plaza. For some reason, which we still are not clear on, the owner of the Knollwood Plaza stopped us from posting our agendas there and from having our shred event there. So it's reasonable for us to believed that he would not allow us to have elections there since he hasn't allowed Granada North to do anything. So the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and the city clerk's office, or the election clerk's office, this election cycle, they are proposing vote in person, vote by mail, or do both of those things. So if we have a location in person, what are your thoughts as far as a location that is geographically compatible for Granada North, but without parking issue, well, some parking, but parking issues and easy access in and out? My thought is the B Canyon or O'Melveny Park, just because we're not going to have that many voters, but it would be a good place to do some election outreach as well. Your thoughts?
If those are available, I think that would be best option, because anything like St. Euphrasia, we need to get permission from the property owners, but the park, I guess we wouldn't necessarily, there's no property owner to deal with. So as long as it's approved, and there's no back and forth. And I think that would take one aspect out and make it a little bit simpler. And it's also geographically close to everybody. So I think
Sure.
that would work.
Graham, you have your hand up?
Yeah. So do you know who was in communication with the owner of that plaza? I mean, is the relationship soured, or do you know why?
Yeah, it had been Mike Greenwald, and when the pandemic hit, his comments to Mike Greenwald were he didn't want to be sued for causing a spread event. That was his reaction at that time. He was very concerned about being sued. And then we were posting our agendas there, and I went to post an agenda, and the agenda, that display case, had been totally it was updated with a solid glass instead of the sliding glass where we could open it and post an agenda and close it. So he didn't communicate that to us, and he was fearful of being sued for creating a spread event. So, and apparently his health wasn't great. He's an older gentleman. So that all of those things coming in.
So is he aware of that stand that's blocking the sidewalk with the food every night, the tacos or whatever it is going on?
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Where a ton of people gather. And is he also aware of those trucks, like the pretzel truck or whatever, that have a ton of people gathering in the back of the parking lot? So
that's good.
I mean,
what kind of truck, Graham?
The Wetzel's Pretzels. I don't know if you guys ever seen it there. It regularly parks back there and has a line of people and a bunch of people. And they're vending and selling out of there, which I don't know if they have permission to do, but that's in that parking lot. It's the same thing.
Interesting.
And there's also that taco stand, which I was going to bring up. And since we're talking about this anyway, I mean, I'm all about street vendors. That's totally fine and everything. But I do notice every time that I drive by, they have big lights and they're blocking the entire public walkway. And people are having to go like almost walk into Balboa into traffic. Or, like there's no really way around unless you're going through the parking lot. So I mean, if they backed up a little bit, that's cool. But also it's creating a whole bunch of people gathered right on Balboa, which is like, I mean, that doesn't really seem too safe to me, right on the curb there. But that was just something in conjunction with this. I mean, I don't know, there's a ton of people gathering there and vendors that I don't know if they have permission, with regards to what you're talking about and him allowing us to do something there. So that kind of seems a bit.
That's a good point, because to your point, and I think we all agree, because we've been going through this for a couple of years now with street vendors and other places, is that the state approved all of that. And with COVID going on, the city was not inclined to deal with, like going and actually seizing this verifying that they are permitted, there's a permit process for street vendors, but the street vending process definitely did not, it wasn't intended for a sidewalk restaurant, which is what's really going on there.
Right.
And you're
Um,
right, it is a public safety hazard, open flames.
Well, yeah, it's been there. I noticed it's been there. Someone brought it up actually at one of our last meetings.
Mhm.
And since then, yeah, it's been there. I mean, this is a new thing, and it's been there for about a month or two now, and it's
Okay.
and I feel like it's gotten bigger. I mean, they bring out full, like, have you guys seen it? Like, it's,
I've driven by there, I've seen it, I'm shocked.
yeah, I mean, it's like a full on, like, yeah, like you said, like a restaurant. I mean, they set up lights and like multiple tables and are blocking the entire area there, and it's like right on the street. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, that seems it seems like a little much for right there. And
Well, you know what I think about, the al fresco, that's for, existing restaurants who trying to survive COVID and post-COVID and all of that. It wasn't intended, I mean, these people I feel badly for the owners who paid all the permits. Alvin had made that point. They pay all the fees, pass all the permits, and pay everything they need to pay. Now these people aren't paying anything. Obviously, they're not
Yeah.
paying that met the owner of that plaza.
right. Well, and with the plaza there too, I agree with you. I mean, there's business owners in there that have been there for a long time, and just the look of it on the neighborhood, the aesthetic is not very good, in my
It's
opinion.
not.
Right.
So, it just doesn't, it kind of, I don't know, it just kind of degrades that whole area right there. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if we can just kind of check them on that, just because, it's like, dude, I mean, if you're going to do it, just maybe scale it back a little, if you have permits or whatever. And, I feel bad too. They're trying to make a living. I'm totally, on their side as well with trying to do street vending. I mean, I always support, local vending and everything, but it's like,
Sure.
when it becomes like blatantly like big lights, you're taking over the whole view as you drive by of the entire
Yeah.
plaza, that's like an issue.
Okay, so I
is.
think what we're gonna do with this piece of it, since this is a good like open discussion situation. I'm gonna put for this to go for the executive committee or under the executive committee, a letter from GHNNC to Councilmember Lee. We'll do Councilmember Lee and the State Assembly, Suzette Valadares, for something needs to be done about this. We'll have to put it together. Yes, AJ.
Yeah, I'm just wondering though, has there been any precedents established of anything that's been done to, kind of stop it in other areas outside of our territory? Because it just seems like we push this issue and it's typical bureaucratic red tape of we can't do it because of this. You can't get the Board of Health involved because they don't work certain hours. So I guess the overall question here is what the question that's being begged is, what are we looking to accomplish by going this route?
I think what we're looking to accomplish I mean, it is a public safety situation, so we could defer it to the public safety, or we can just take as a neighborhood council, because, this is our district. And that wasn't intended. I mean, we know in the one that's over by Target, it's across the street from Trader Joe's and other businesses. But to your point, it's across the street from residences. It's a residential, people want to walk there, and at the same time, the owner needs to be called out if he's not doing anything about it, to at least complain or move them along, so something needs to be done. So we're going to discussion and possible action by the GHNNC board regarding the sidewalk kitchen. And
So to potentially contact the owner, or
well, Well, I mean, we could contact the owner. I can get his number from Mike Greenwald. That's not the problem, but we don't want it to continue because there are businesses. Look, the Jug is right there. There's two other restaurants in the plaza. Not worried about McDonald's and Starbucks, but there's other businesses that are trying to make it. So good point. Excellent conversation. So let's take this to a board discussion on what we want to do with this. But it doesn't.
Also, yeah, one last thing on that too, to keep in mind, I think, is they might be getting away with some technicality, just to think about easements. So, on that property that owner's on, and I know the sidewalks are public property, and there's an easement. So I think they might be set up on the easement, which is also could be technically public. I don't know the whole legalities of how that works. But that's just something to keep in mind of like where they might be getting away with it. But I'm sure if the owner doesn't know, I mean, he should know, or maybe he's taking, I don't know, maybe he's pocketing cash from them. They're paying him off. I have no idea.
Anything's possible.
But I mean, that's, that would be something like, okay, well, you're set up in this plaza, if it's the owner of this, that everyone there has leases that pays the owner for their space, and these people don't. I mean, I'm sure he would care about that. So, from a business standpoint that we were talking about, I mean, that completely makes sense to bring that up. So yeah, I would contact, like you said, bring it before the board, or, public safety, and also, the owner too. I mean, if he's not aware, I mean, he should be made aware of it. But yeah, that's a good point that there's residents, it's right across the street. I mean, there's houses and things there. There's a ton of smoke coming from the grills and everything out, right on the road. So yeah, anyway.
Okay, good. Well, that's Wetzel's Pretzels. I did not know that was going on. Did anyone else know that was going on? Jason?
No, where?
Right
said-
there, right there. It was right where that kitchen sets up on the sidewalk. They pull in like a few times a week at least, and park in the back of the lot right there, take up the spaces across the back and vend.
Wow, boy, things you learn at these meetings. Yes, Mr. Lester.
I just want to make some quick points. One, this comes up very frequently, the next door issue and things like that. It usually comes down to cries of racism, that people are going after the vendors specifically because they are typically Hispanic. So it's a sensitive topic. But I'm glad AJ had mentioned about the inspectors not working those hours, because that was an issue I'd forgotten about, that they don't have people working at those times to cite these people. And I don't think that it's fair when restaurants are under such scrutiny by health department officials, but
I agree.
the people on the street are doing who knows what, and there is zero regulation just because people aren't working those hours. So I think that maybe they need to look into possibly after hour inspectors to go and cite these vendors, because I'm sure that they are violating lots of codes that restaurants are being held accountable to, and they're there for public safety. It's not to give the restaurants a difficult time, it's for public safety. And to have people say, well, it's my choice if I go and eat it, this vendor's place, if I get sick, it's on me. Well, it's kind of not.
No.
And that's not how it works.
But to your point, Jason, because I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I could tell you, I have dealt with those situations where we've gotten a B rating, and it is not fun. I worked at the Granada Hills Fatburger, as a matter of fact, and there was that one time we got a B rating, and I can't tell you how hard it was to get that inspector off our back. I mean, we had to have one follow-up inspection after another to finally get them off our back. And not to discount the health department, they're doing their job, but to your point, it's we have to endure all this scrutiny, and you could even be fined by the health department too like if I guess after a certain amount of inspections, you could be fined as well. It'd even be shut down. But it's like for them to be able to get away with the scrutiny, I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, the sensitive topic of racism is brought up when this issue is brought up when it's more of a public safety issue.
Yeah, and you know, and again, you know, there's street vending was intended for what we see at the conclusion of most of the events at our stadiums, where you have people with the carts selling those the grilled vegetables and the what do you call them, hot links or whatever they are. That's what street vending was intended to be, not a kitchen on a sidewalk that's compromising the other local businesses and public safety. And racism, you know, what happened last Saturday in Buffalo, New York, that's racism. But telling someone you can't set up a sidewalk kitchen, that's not racism. So they get a little carried away with using the term. You know, it has to fit, and we don't want that there. That's just not something that needs to be there. So 100% agreed. We're going to take this to the board. So so what are your thoughts? So should we keep Knollwood on as a location option, subject to discussion with the owner and with outlining all of these issues that are here? And then the second would be either, well, I guess O'Melveny or B Canyon Park. How do you feel about that? Yes, Graham.
I think it should be maybe twofold, where you know, we definitely should address the Knollwood situation and try to, who's ever reaching out, because I know Michael's now gone, try to make amends, or just, you know, kind of smooth over the relationship with him and by contacting him. And maybe that's not going to smooth things over necessarily if we bring up the street vendor thing and, you know, whatever. But I mean, I think he should be made aware. So if we approach it on the side of, you know, obviously tactfully and just, you know, be like, hey, this is going on, you know, we're just, you know, I know Michael's gone, you know, we wanted to reestablish a good relationship with you and see, you know, if this would be an option or not. I think that should be one, you know, like a option that we can go for. And then as a backup or whatever, yeah, I think Melveny is kind of just the access to it, and Cessna and the parking lot is already super packed all the time now. So I don't know if that would be a good option. It would probably be kind of clustered. I know there's some street parking there, but it's pretty full. So that's kind of the only problem with that. However, if we do have, you know, we were talking about the music and arts festival at the golf course. I mean, that could also be an option, which is right there and a little further south and more accessible, and they got a pretty big parking lot. So I don't know if we can talk to them about that. That might be another option. So
that is county. So we would have to maybe make a request with Councilman's office to work with the county, or the county. We will have a new supervisor, which will probably, well, we don't know how the election will go, but depending on who that supervisor is, we might have some more opportunities there. So, okay, so I think, so we'll start with, so we're all in agreement. We're going to start with discussing with the board the current circumstances at Knollwood, that because the entire board would prefer Knollwood to be that location if we can smooth over our relationship with, you know, establish our relationship with Mr. Nealman and see what we can do about that. So, but that, we'll see how we go with that. Okay, so then item F is, actually, I beg your pardon, item G. Okay, so election outreach strategies and locations for the strategies, like election outreach to say we're having a neighborhood council election, get involved. This is who we are. if we're in the area around the car wash area, it looks good. It would be good for us because they all know how we work together to keep the peace and tranquility of their neighborhood. So what are your thoughts about outreach to let them know we're here and what's going on and invite them to join the board? I can tell you what happened in the past. Since this is, I can't believe this is my third election cycle. You know, they do have, we do have a pop-up. We could do set up a pop-up outside CVS. Brian made that connection for that other plum event. So we could do something like that, just to say, get involved, run for, we don't have a lot of options, but CVS was able to use their space to allow us to be there versus hassling with the actual owner himself of the plaza. So we could do that. We're still waiting to kind of see where COVID goes, to see if they would do some sort of Region 2 event where we would all be together and have some candidate outreach. But I mean, for our area, we could have posters in the local businesses. They've always been very gracious about that. We could get some signage. Just looking at our attendance overall, I wanted to reach out to see what your thoughts were, where our average vote count is rounding up about 60 people. So what efforts do we want? Postcard mailers is what a lot of the neighborhood councils are doing. Even in my brother's district, the neighborhood council did postcards. So what do you think?
Do we know this cycle, if it's a situation like last year where there just aren't enough people to trigger?
We won't know till the registration part is complete. So I think some pre-outreach, because we didn't really have a lot of, other than the mayor's announcement, there wasn't a lot to the community to understand, who neighborhood councils are and what they are, even though they've been around for 20 years. They did, the department did a survey, and there are so many people that have no idea who neighborhood councils are. Yes, Graham?
Yeah, I think outreach for this, I think it's very, either way, even if there isn't enough to trigger an election or whatever is going on, I think it's important for, like you just said, for the stakeholders in the community to know that we exist and they can actually make an impact and have a voice in their local community to make a difference and to have a say in things. And I've talked to people in the neighborhood and different businesses since living here, and they do care, and they, I'm educating and informing them that it does exist. So I think that's really important that we do some sort of outreach. And I think mailers would be great if we can, get some funds for that or whatever. And any promotional materials. And also, do we have a kind of email list or a database? I think we've done surveys. So I think it would be important to also send out, an email of, not crazy over the top, because everyone hates like a lot of emails and spam and stuff, but like just a few during that cycle where it can be informational and also provide any links and, to the candidates and everything else going on. So more people can be involved. And then any areas where we can post any flyers or, any businesses like the Knowood Plaza or the golf course or anywhere that has the business part of the community, which there's not very much in Granada Hills North, but just a couple of those entering when you come up from Rinaldi are just what I think of as just the plaza and the golf course. So, I mean, if we can put stuff there, send out email blasts and do mailers, I think that's, as much as we can possibly do.
Okay. And I will add to that, we could do a pop-up outreach at O'Melveny as people are walking by and do handouts that way.
Oh
we
yeah, and
could-
at the parks too. Yeah, great.
Yes,
That's-
yes. But one thing I think we are also unified in agreement with is that we do want the board to participate. I mean, we tend to, this is everyone's election, even though we're outreach and publicity. Everyone is responsible for their own campaign, really. So it's important for them to come out and represent themselves. If we have a pop-up and we say, okay, outreach and publicity committee, we're going to be there, but we need, of course, Oscar always shows up, and then our other committees also have to, the committee chairs particularly, all have to participate and discuss their individual committees and what we do so people understand. Because if you don't educate people on who you are and what you do, that's why we're probably not getting much interest, because they see neighborhood council, but that's all they see. So they don't really know, well, what does that mean? So it's up to us, all of us, not just outreach and publicity, to educate the community on who we are, what we do for them. Everyone has a different interest. Yes, Jason?
I was just going to say that maybe a good idea to also take a look at things that the neighborhood council has accomplished for the
Yes.
community,
Yes.
and kind of compile like a list. There are some comments when neighborhood council comes up. I've seen online comments from community members saying they don't do anything. It's a waste of taxpayer money, things like along those lines. I think to say we have done, these things, or we've accomplished these things for the community, and just to kind of overwhelm them with a list, it would make people say like, oh, they are actually doing things. It's just behind the scenes. They don't really know what's going on. They don't really see everything that's happening unless it's a really major thing, which obviously in this community, there's nothing major that, would get the community's attention. But there are things being done. And I think it'd be good to make people aware of those things that have been accomplished and that are being worked on and pursued, so they do think that we are doing something.
That's a great
Okay.
idea. That's a great
That's a
idea.
great idea. And we
Thank you.
have, Graham just has been working on the parks. We have that project's going on, park beautification and enhancements. And we
Yeah, I
had,
mean, yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, there's a whole, I think there's a whole list of stuff. I mean, we can just look at, I think it would be good to maybe review. I mean, I know it probably takes some time, but like the minutes, I mean, that we have from our meetings, and just, things that we may forget. You can just go back, scroll, skim through the minutes and just grab some highlights and do like a, really good highlight reel of, last year or two or more of what we've accomplished. I think it would be great.
Okay, or maybe we could have an email, because we have Sid and Brian and Ralph, who are the more and Raheem are the more seasoned members of the board. So they have some history that we don't have. And then I'm 5 years in, so I've got my own testimonials and you all have your own. So I think if we put all that together, that's actually very good. And we could just put, this is what Granada Hills North has done for the Granada Hills North community. And to your point, list all of those out. And that's good feedback, actually. I don't look at Nextdoor, so thank you, Jason. I don't look at it.
Yeah.
You don't want to look at it.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point, Karen. You also just gave me an idea for that. Based on what you just said, an easy way to do that would be maybe if we sent out like what you just had stated about what we've accomplished, and anyone like everyone on the board basically would just reply like on an email to the board itself, like from us to us sort of thing, with a list of things, like everyone can just gather their own list, reply, and then we just kind of make it into a big, like, master list sort of thing.
Sure, accomplishments of Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
And that way, the people who are new to the community, who aren't familiar, they would know. I think if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that under Mike Greenwald's time, that intersection where you exit the Knollwood Plaza, that signal there, I think he was involved in that. Or
He
or the
was.
oh, he was. Okay, so there you go. So that, the daycare center, remember that one where they were gonna put 50 or 60 kids in that house on the corner of Halsey and Balboa? That's more recent, and the car wash situation and other things going on too. So
Mary Ellen Crosby Park, wasn't that
Mary
children's
Ellen,
park?
yes, there you
Yeah.
go. Yes, Mary Ellen Crosby. Okay, all right, so good. Okay, so that sounds good as far as our strategy there, and then maybe a pop-up at CVS and a pop-up at O'Melveny to outreach to the community. The other business location is smaller because it's on San Fernando Mission and Woodley, and very small plaza, and the dairy, the drive-through dairy is there. So that's not ideally a place where we could set up, but we could put posters. They've allowed us to put posters, and they and then Casa de Pizza's on the other side. So we could, another long. You met them at the shred event. The owners of the Casa de Pizza were at the shred event.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have some good support. Any other thoughts on that? On the outreach strategies and
Yeah,
location?
with that pop-up, I mean, you could also do, part of that event or whatever, just kind of a speaker thing. I mean, I'd probably be involved with that, but just having, us as candidates or whatever speak, have a certain amount of time, just speak and just, answer any questions or, whatever, just to have a platform.
Yes, and so the future strategy, because we're handling this a little bit earlier. Usually it's something that kind of like shows up in November, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So with us having this dialogue now, we are getting ahead of the game. We also have the anniversary of the neighborhood council. I believe it's next September, so that's something else we'll have to kind of focus on as well. But we would be able to have, subject to the AB 361 and all of that, is having either virtually or in person a candidate, just like we're discussing right now, candidate information workshop to explain what is a neighborhood council and what are some of the issues that, because we have a unique area. So what's exclusive to us and what are they interested in? I mean, we know the obvious things about the homelessness and all that, but this would be a good way for us to do that. What do you think?
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Fantastic discussion there. And then the next one, this one, the item number H for 20 for the understanding responsible pet ownership. The especially for the adoptions and the lap of love. Lap of love is the hospice. Saturdays aren't good for them, so they asked for a weekday, like a week evening, to conduct the meeting, because usually Saturdays families are gathered together. They're either adopting a pet or they have to make the decision with the hospice and euthanasia. So that's why Saturday's not a good day. So how do you feel about that? You think that's okay? Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Motion,
Sure.
motion,
Yeah.
motion and second?
Second.
Who made the first?
Motion.
Who was the first?
I'll second.
Okay,
AJ second.
thank you. All right. Okay, and then we are down to, Jay said, this is back on the agenda again, gentlemen, item I. This was approved about 2 years ago. And there was an issue with, Jason, what happened with, because you had the signs designed. Jason designed these great signs. This came from our president, Oscar. When we remove a tree or repair a sidewalk, we fund a service to have these tree removal or sidewalks or other services in the community. It was a great idea from Oscar to have a sign to place where that item used to be, saying services courtesy of Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council, or tree removed or repair. And then Jason designed the signs, and then what happened?
To be honest, I don't know 100% what happened. There was issue with payment, and the person I was working with, I think, was being maybe a little bit difficult. And then Brian got involved to pay it, and I don't know what happened in that conversation, and it got more complicated and more difficult, and a simple transaction, I don't know, but I can give you an update. The person who I was working with, they were selling their home and moving, and they took down all of their equipment.
Right.
The house that they were going to purchase, that fell through, so they've sold their house. I think they actually had to move out this weekend. Everything is disassembled.
Mhm.
They have nowhere to move to,
Ooh.
so they're scrambling to look to rent a house in the meantime, but they're looking for an office space to set up all of their equipment so they won't be down any longer. And also, it's difficult to find a space to rent that they has the room for all of this printing equipment. Now, they have huge machines, so they're looking for both somewhere to live and somewhere to rent for commercial purposes to resume and set up shop again. So they still haven't got their equipment back online, and obviously it's not the only person in the world that can do these things. I can look into possibly other options for that signage, since we already have something that was made, and I can see what else I can find, just in case this becomes another 2 months before they're back online. They had a house that they were going to be moving into a couple weeks ago, and I thought they'd be back online now, but then that sale, it was up in Northern California, fell through, and I don't know why, and I don't know how, but that's where it's at.
Oh, Graham, sorry to hear that, by the way.
It's real
Yeah.
estate now.
Yeah. So where exactly? So we don't have the signs physically, or we do?
No, we started with, we had we had funded before the pandemic. We had approved funds to do some. It came up where in I think that was 2019. The councilman's office, the funding was reduced for tree removal, and we had a couple of issues that had to be dealt with in the community. So it took a long time, unfortunately, but what Oscar came up with as the trees were trimmed or removed was to have a sign placed there
Right.
where the problem was. And unfortunately, like I said, Jason designed the signs. It was beautiful. It was on our it was our logo and all that.
So
But
so so yeah, I know all that. I'm just like getting to. So did we have the fund? Do we have the funds still, or this is an addition to?
Well, this is just a backup. I mean, we had the funds were approved.
So where are those now? What happened to those?
That they would be a part of our encumbered funds, because they are still a part of carryover.
Okay, so
rollover.
to clarify, this is additional funding for these signs.
This
that we already
this would be additional funding if we can't locate the BAC. As you know, we've been having some trouble with the city clerk's office.
Right.
So rather than to hassle with them, we're going to do a fresh one, because there's something going on in the city clerk's office. we don't
Okay,
wanna hassle.
so those funds are just went back into, like, we
Correct.
encumbered them, and then now we're just gonna start fresh and not worry about the past with that. And so, yeah, that's totally cool. I'm done. I just
Okay.
wanted to, it was a little confusing on
Correct.
what the situation was. So, yeah, I'm down. Anyone, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Is that a motion from you, Graham?
Yes, I'll motion.
Okay, all right.
I'll second.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess me saying I'm down is a motion.
Sure, I love it.
That's funny.
All right, very good. Okay, and this is we are on item J. So what are we looking at? for a discussion regarding proposed outreach and publicity events for 2022 and 2023. Let's start with the Music, Food, and Art Festival. What are our thoughts? And we're gonna let Graham start with this one.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, I think it's great. I'm all about it. I would be happy to. Well, as we discussed before, I think the great location would that be for at the golf course, and I'm happy to help in any way possible. I have a ton of, the whole artist, the A&R part of it. And artist relations I can do. I know, I have a ton of connections to the biggest jazz artists. I mean, if it's specifically jazz or, crossover different genres, we can do maybe a primarily sort of jazz oriented thing, jazz and blues. But there's artists from, I have connections directly to Herbie Hancock. I can potentially ask. I don't know how much you would, charge. That's the other thing. We could get
it's free.
Well, yeah. Well, that's, I'm talking about like what the artist would, do it for, like if there's a budget for any artists or not. So that's another, I guess, issue depending on what the artist, what artist we would get for this. Depends on solely on budget, because as like I said, I have the connections to the biggest artists you can possibly think of, to local, and to people who would, it just depends. So I guess that would be an issue to discuss on the artist front. And then I've been a part of boards and the head teams to create and from festivals from scratch. So I know, I have outlines of like every sort of thing that we would need from, which I'm sure you guys know as well, and probably have a basis for it, from, the sanitation to the electrical hookups, any vendors to like, bathrooms, a whole, everything, parking. So, there's a lot of things involved that we would have to, obviously draft out and get together. It's an involved process for sure. And it takes obviously quite a bit of time to do, like over a course of, depending on when we would want to have it. It would probably, I'd say you'd start planning and securing things with at least 6 to 9 months in advance.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so it's just, I guess it really depends on who we get involved in the budgets. As far as, there's definitely different ways to go about it. Sponsorships are always huge. So, some of these vendors for exposure, and they're selling their things, they kind of just do it. They're not going to like throw in money, but to like set it up or any of the like kind of brass tacks of it. But there are other, sponsors that, you can go for that will make monetary, donations or funding tax write-offs that they can do for something like this. But, or I don't know, through the councilman's office, if they wanted to be a part of it. And I don't know, we'd have to figure out exactly how that whole part of it would work and, follow all the guidelines and bylaws and everything of what we're doing. So, but that's, kind of summary of where I'm coming from, I think, and what, would need to be done.
Okay. Yeah, I think our funding sources, or at least our frontline resources, would be the councilman's office, who was interested back when it was first announced. When I first started outreach in 2018, this was actually people were surprised but excited about it. Then Suzette Valadares, she's actually currently running for re-election, so we'll see, once if she's re-elected, or who the candidate will be. The county, we will also have a new supervisor, so again, and then the senator as well, and then also the local businesses, the chamber. So there should be a lot of interest once we get things, pulling things together. Oscar also, one of his friends is either the CEO or CFO of the Greek Festival, which is a big event. I don't know if you've attended that, Graham, because you arrived like at a time where I can't remember when you arrived here, but
No, I haven't. No, I'm
It's a-
not.
okay. It's a huge event as well. So we have that source. And then also there's a couple of neighborhood councils in LA under Council Member Price's district. They host huge jazz festivals every year. So I was think it's a good idea for us to connect with their entertainment or outreach team because they do it often. And it's even televised on Channel 35. So I think they would be a good guide for us as well.
Cool.
So that one, and then of course we have our the street fair will be, I think they said October 16th, and then the parade. And not sure if there will be a disaster fair, which is not in our purview. And then we'll start to, I guess we'll reach out to the board for ideas about the anniversary of Granada North, 20-year anniversary for Granada North celebration. Anything else you'd like to see? Well, if you think of something, just let us know. We just bring it up and we'll put the paper to the pen to the paper.
Either or.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. So now committee member announcements. We'll start, Mr. Waters.
Nothing for me, just, nice to see all of you again.
And Mr. Lester.
I second AJ.
Okay. And Mr. Zach.
No, everything's great. Good discussions. I thought this was a really great meeting.
Thank you.
And a lot of these topics that we're addressing are important. So, and I appreciate all of you.
Yes. Well, this is our last meeting for this cycle. So, we'll have, start up again in July, but it's definitely, we will have a special meeting on the 23rd. So we won't have a meeting then. So we'll go on to July. So it's been a pleasure. And I just appreciate all of you. We have a great committee, a cohesive committee, and just appreciate you all very much. So thank you again. And I hope you have a great weekend. And see you at the board meeting.
Right.
All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Have a
too.
great
Take care.
weekend. Okay, bye-bye. I'm gonna stop.